r/nosleep. Posted by you/Rosie_Roz3. Every night I've been hearing inhuman screams. Listen, I know what I'm about to say will sound crazy. And trust me, if it wasn't for the fact that I experienced this firsthand, I wouldn't even believe it. But the truth is, I did experience this, and what I am saying is true, and something like this happened. All I ask is that whoever reads this heeds my warning and doesn't end up like me. It was about 9 weeks ago that I moved into my new house. It was a little bit out of town and surrounded by the woods, but it was cheap, so I thought it was a good steal. How wrong I was. If I could go back, I would never have gotten the house. Sorry, I'm getting off track. Anyways, the house was in pretty good shape and more than enough room for me since I live alone. The owner who was selling it did act a little weird and even had an almost pity look in their eyes when I agreed to buy it. When they showed me the house, they remarked, "Yeah, no, if I was you I wouldn't live out here so close to the woods." I shrugged off their comment to them, just trying to make a joke. Little did I know they were trying to warn me. After I bought the house, I had all my stuff moved in, and for the first 4 days of living there I had no problems. The house was everything I wanted. That was until the 5th night came around. I got home from work around 11 p.m. I work an evening shift from about 3 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. and was getting ready for bed. I had laid down in bed and was just drifting off when I heard what sounded like a mountain lion screaming. While it did sound off, I brushed it off, seeing as how they do frequent the area and I do live near the woods. This, however, would occur every night. Sometimes the screaming would last 5 minutes and sometimes it would last up to 12 minutes. Sometimes the screaming would stop and then start up 30 minutes to an hour later. After 2 weeks of living there, the sound of claws scratching against my house and windows would occur with the screaming. I had gotten enough of it and decided to check around my house the next morning. Upon inspection the next morning, I confirmed there was something outside my house. There were claw marks that varied in depth and looked really rugged. Whatever it was has very uneven claws. I called the local wildlife services and had them come take a look. They inspected the marks and listened to what I had to say about my sleepless nights and came to the conclusion that it was a mountain lion, possibly one with rabies, seeing as how it is so comfortable being near human life. I was advised to not go outside at all at night, to avoid possible confrontation with it. They assured me they would do their best to capture it. I appreciated their help. I thought that after that, everything would go back to normal, but that was just the start of it. For a few nights after that, I didn't have any problems with the mountain lion, but everything quickly escalated after just 4 nights. That night, it came back, but it had prey as well. I heard the prey scream as the mountain lion killed it. It was so close I swore I could hear the sound of its bones breaking, skin tearing, and flesh being ripped off it. The thought and image of that made my stomach turn and I rushed to the bathroom to throw up. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I waited till morning to go out and check out what exactly happened. Knowing what I know now, I should have taken that as a warning. In the morning, I checked the backside of my house, which faced the woods, and right where my bedroom window is, there was a big pool of almost dried blood with some pieces of flesh, fur, and bone. Holding my mouth and forcing my bile back down, I followed the blood trail that led towards the woods. Just a little bit into the woods I discovered what was left of the prey. It was completely mutilated, so much so I couldn't tell what it was. Its guts were strewn out with some pieces of fur covering some parts. There were some bones, including what looked to be a bitten in half skull. I couldn't take it anymore and turned and dry heaved. Luckily I hadn't eaten anything so far. I felt sick to my stomach, so I called into work to get the day off, then called the wildlife services. Once they got to my house, I showed them what I discovered. Even though they looked sick to the stomach, they cleaned up the poor animal. After that they checked the area and upon not finding anything left but told me to call again if there was anything else like this. Stuff like this continued on for another 3 weeks. Sometimes I would find dead animals from the mountain lion's late night snack, or I would find more claw marks on my house or in the ground. I even started feeling like I was being watched by something. You can call me crazy all you like, but I was and still am convinced that it knew what it was doing, and it did what it did to torment me. Over the 3 weeks, my mental and physical health suffered. I would even start to hallucinate that there was something in my house, but upon further inspection there would be nothing there. I didn't sleep much, started to eat less, and my performance at work was horrible. I had finally had enough and wanted to confront this mountain lion. I was convinced it wasn't a mountain lion but something worse. And against my better judgment I wanted to face it and kill it. This was the biggest mistake of my life. When night came, I grabbed my flashlight, my shotgun shells, and headed out into the dark night. As I walked farther into the woods, I could hear both distant and close sounds of twigs snapping and the sound of growls. I shivered in cold fear, but my determination commanded my legs to move forward. I continued on but soon heard those inhuman screams. They sent chills down my spine and made me stop dead in my tracks. The screams were so close and so loud they pierced my ears. Off to my left, I could hear the bushes rustling. Thankfully, I snapped to my senses and dodged out of the way as something jumped at me. Although I didn't get fully out of the way, it still managed to cut my side just a little. Even though it was just scratched, it hurt so badly, burned like fire, and wouldn't stop bleeding. Holding my elbow against my wound, I focused my flashlight where it had disappeared back into the bushes and shakily put the shotgun shells in my shotgun. I saw movement and aimed and shot. I figured it wouldn't hit it, with how fast it was moving, but the damn thing started laughing. It was guttural, deep, animalistic, and human all at one time. The laughter echoed out among the trees. That was enough to make my fear win my body over, and I took off running towards my house. I didn't realize I had walked in so deep, but apparently I had. I heard it chasing me, still laughing. I was its prey and it was just playing with me as it hunted me down. What did I possibly think I could have done to something as evil and horrible as it? Why the fuck didn't the previous house owner warn me? These thoughts kept going through my mind as I ran as fast as I could. I would trip over tree roots that hadn't been there before, but my determination to not let it get any closer kept me upright and running. I finally saw the tree line edge and rejoiced. I knew I could get to the safety of my house. Just as I got to the edge, a clawed hand grabbed my leg and yanked. I screamed as I felt my leg break. I rolled onto my back and saw the thing right over me. It was big, possibly 9 feet, about 2.7 meters, tall. It had all the features of an animal, but it also had human features. It looked like a mix of a wolf, deer, and a human. It even had some vines on it. And it smelled like death. Just what the hell was this thing? It leaned down over me and I saw its horrendous, unnatural smile full of razor-sharp and long teeth. I turned my head away, looking for my shotgun. It was a little far from my hands. If I could reach it, I might have a chance. It laughed, snarled, and growled, scoping me out. Seeing my reaction, getting joy from it. Thankfully, that allowed me to reach my shotgun. I grabbed it and had it loaded. It leaned a little farther back and grabbed my face. Right then I positioned the shotgun and shot it right in the head. It screamed and fell back. I struggled up and half limped, half ran back to my house. I locked all the doors and windows, and took cover in my closet. I could hear it moving around outside. It called for me in an almost human voice, but I wouldn't be fooled. Finally, the sun came and I could no longer hear it. I struggled to walk to my phone and call 911. I had no idea what I could say, so I told them I was attacked by a mountain lion. The ambulance, police, and wildlife services showed up. I was taken to the hospital and had my wounds and broken leg attended to. The police asked many questions, but I gave the bare minimum of answers and lied about some. I mean, who would believe me that something like that monster attacked me? Once I was released, I went back to that house, packed my stuff, and left. As I left the house, I saw it standing among the tree line, just watching me go. I floored the gas and I never looked back. I contacted the county later and told them that the house is inhabitable to anyone and asked for it to be destroyed. After much convincing they agreed, only because the previous house owner stepped up and confirmed it. I wanted to be mad at the previous house owner, but I couldn't. They dealt with that stuff longer than me. Well, that's my story. I'm writing this from a hotel room to warn everyone that reads this: don't buy a house for cheap, especially if it is near the woods. You might just experience something similar to I stay safe out there, people. Reality is truly scarier than fiction. Posted by you/Rosie_Roz3. I saw what killed my friend, but no one believes me. This is probably one of the hardest things I'll ever do. I don't want to be shunned and accused like the people in my town did to me, and this is a very personal matter to me. But I am posting here because I have no one else to turn to. 2 weeks ago, my friend and I visited a party. Like most parties, there were alcoholic drinks involved, but I didn't drink any. I'm both underage and I was the designated driver. My friend, however, who was of legal age, got wasted. The party we were at was this big house and near the woods. My friend, in his drunken state, thought it'd be funny if we all explored the woods in the dark. I was against this idea, but my concerns were drowned out by the agreement of the other drunk partygoers. I didn't want my drunk friend in the woods with other drunk people, so I followed them into the forest. I wish I had just persisted and prevented my friend from entering. Everything is my fault. I was the responsible one, so how could I have let something like that happen? I'm sorry for going off topic. This is all very hard for me to write. I hope you understand. As I was saying, we all entered the woods. Nothing went wrong until my friend decided to run off deeper into the woods. I chased after him to make sure he didn't get hurt or worse. I finally caught up to him in a clearing. He was just at the edge of the clearing, staring out into the center. "Hey, what's the matter? Let's just go back," I said, panting. He pointed to the center of the clearing. "Do you see that as well?" I looked at his face and saw a look of pure terror. For a drunk person to have such a look on their face caused my blood to run cold and my hair stand on end. Slowly, I turned my attention to what he meant. In the middle of the clearing was this tall, demonic monster. While I could not see it very well, I saw enough to make me freeze in place. The monster was solid looking but was covered in a black fog. The fog swarmed around it, making it darker than the night. The clouds in the sky shifted and moonlight shone upon the monster. I immediately averted my eyes out of fear, but my friend continued to stare. I heard him scream and looked towards him. He was clawing at his eyes as blood dripped from them and his nose. "Hey! Are you alright? What's wrong?" I yelled as I went to him. He wouldn't respond, so I had no choice but to grab him and try to run. This caused the creature to move and shot out a foggy tendril and coiled it around my friend. He screamed as he was snatched from my hands. I watched in horror as I saw my own friend claw his own eyes out as the monster held him in its grasps. Fear captivated me and prevented me from running to my friend to help him. I mean, I'm his friend, but I was unable to help him. The monster smiled a horrible, evil grin as it ripped my friend's arm from his body. His blood-curdling screams made something in my mind snap as I completely lost all numbness in my body. I fell to my knees and watched in despair as my friend was brutally killed. I don't know how many hours passed, but the sun was rising as I snapped back to my senses. Tears fell from my eyes continuously as I looked at the blood-stained grass that was the only reminder of what had happened. Both my friend and that monster were gone, disappeared into thin air. After sitting there, consumed by my own emotions for God knows how long, I pulled myself from the ground. I stumbled back through the woods in a state of shock. No emotion showed on my face as I continued to cry. I was hurt, shocked, mad, and sad all at once. I was also afraid of whatever it was. What prevented it from killing me as well? I thought for sure it'd kill me, but it didn't. I got back to the house, to see tons of people passed out on lawn chairs or the ground itself. I felt anger towards them. Did they not even hear my friend's screams? Then I felt angry at myself for not being able to help him. I stumbled to my car and drove to the police station to tell them what happened. That was 2 weeks ago. Search parties are still out looking for my friend, but I know they'll never find him. I've become the prime suspect seeing as how I reported the incident, but there was no evidence to prove that my friend was killed by something else. I mean, could you imagine being accused of murdering your own best friend who has been your friend since you were 4? No one believed me about the monster. Some believe I killed him and came up with a delusional story. Others think I witnessed someone else kill him but couldn't handle it and think I disguised the person as a monster in my memories. I did not kill my best friend, nor did I make up that monster. Even the most imaginative person wouldn't have imagined something as cruel and evil as it. I've faced ridicule over these 2 weeks and I mainly just want to know that there are those that believe me. My parents, with approval by the police, are preparing to send me to a mental institution. I mean, how could my own parents not believe me? Well, that's all I have to write. I wanted to post this here before my chance got taken away. I hope to find those that believe me and to let me know that I'm not crazy. Posted by you/Rosie_Roz3. When I was a child, I was haunted by a demon. This took place nearly 20 years ago. As a child, around the age of 8, my family moved into an old house. The house was big and built in the mid-1800s. My family moved to this town and into the house after my dad had gotten a new job. The town we lived in was one of those stereotypical towns you see that have old history. We knew nothing of the history of the house. I was overly excited about moving into a big house. I had never lived in a house as big as it before and looked forward to it. The house was just a normal looking house both on the outside and inside. While it was built in the 1800s, over the years it had been modified to fit modern standards. My siblings and I even got to have our own rooms to ourselves. My room, however, was a little off compared to the other rooms in the house. Despite the lights, it always appeared dark and it stayed constantly cold. I didn't think much of it and neither did my parents, at least, not at first. After moving into the house, everything was great for the first few months of living there. It wasn't until I had accidentally torn the wallpaper that I found a secret trapdoor in the wall. It was big enough to where an adult human could slide through if they were on their back. I thought it was strange for a door to be there when the wall outside my room had no indication of a room being there. Curiosity had gotten the best of me and I opened the door. Inside was a room about the size of a decent-sized walk-in closet. The strangest and creepiest part of it was the pentagram on the floor with the skull of a goat in the center of it. There were stains dark in color that resembled that of blood splatter, but as a child I thought nothing of it. I disturbed the pentagram and goat skull by accident. Upon disturbing it, the lights in my room flickered as it got colder. An awful smell of sulfur hit my nose and made me feel sick to my stomach. Because of that, I left the secret room and closed the door. I didn't tell my parents about it because I liked the fact that I knew of something they didn't. I tried my hardest to cover up the secret door with whatever I could find so they wouldn't find out about it. This worked, but it was the biggest mistake of my life. Over the course of the next few weeks, my stuff would go missing and end up somewhere else in the house. At night when I slept, my blanket would get pulled off me. After a good 3 weeks, this escalated very badly. I started seeing this demonic entity at the foot of my bed, threatening me. I would be petrified and wait for it to disappear to go screaming and crying to my parents' room. I had nightmares of the demonic entity chasing me throughout the house and always catching me. In the nightmares, I'd have to scream myself awake, which caused my parents to rush into my room whenever this happened. I would sleepwalk, and when I'd wake up I'd be in that secret room. Sometimes I'd suffer from sleep paralysis and I'd see that entity and it would just terrorize me while I couldn't move. I would get pushed or scratched. This happened over the course of a couple months. My personality began to change and I'd have random outbursts of anger. I would be mean to my siblings or yell at my parents, which I never would have done before. I would feel myself be drawn to the secret room for no reason. It became so bad that I felt like a passenger in my own body and something else was controlling it. My parents began to worry for me and ask my questions. These questions would only lead to outbursts from me. My mother, who was overly religious, confronted my dad about me. She suspected that I could be under attack by a demon. While my father didn't really believe it, he went along with my mother because he wanted to help me however he could. My mother contacted the priest from the town's church and told them about the situation we were in. The priest came to our house and confirmed the presence of a demonic entity and believed I was possessed by it. I remember feeling a great hatred for the priest, as if the priest's mere presence made my blood boil. It confused me greatly. Over the course of the next couple days, exorcists who the priest called in came to my house. My siblings were sent to stay at our neighbor's house for the time being until everything was resolved. I only remember what happened before the exorcism took place and what happened afterwards. My parents held me down in a chair as the exorcist blessed me with prayers. I remember the prayers feeling like nails scratching against a chalkboard as I began twitching and jerking. Holy water was thrown on me which felt like fire on my skin. After that I don't remember anything until the very end. The first thing I remember is a feeling of calmness washing over me as I felt like I was being bathed in a pure white light. The second thing I remember is the smell of sweet fragrant roses that engulfed my sense of smell. When I opened my eyes, I felt control of my body once more and no longer felt like a passenger. I cried tears of joy as I apologized to my parents. My parents wept with joy and everyone there was relieved and happy that everything worked out all right. We all felt like the long dark night was gone, replaced by a brilliant dawn. I finally felt like myself once more. After that, my family moved to a different house and left everything that happened in that one in the past. I no longer suffered. Later on, when I was older, I found out that the house had many owners who were satanic worshippers. They had used that secret room to perform their sacrifices. There were also many deaths that happened in the house, but whether they were related to the demonic entity or not, I'll never know. While the house is no longer in livable condition, it is still haunted by that demon to this day. The exorcists were not able to fully get rid of it.